question 29. A. Demonstrate and explain the multiplier process. 14 marks.
Okay, so the purpose of today is to explain the multiplier concept. It's obviously a really important concept in economics. It might even be the most important concept, so it's important that you have an understanding of the multiplier. What we're going to do today is basically go through what would be a really good answer for the question you did on your exam. So as a starting point, it's really important that you define the multiplier and define it as precisely and accurately as you can. So the definition of the multiplier is the ratio of change in the level of income as a result of a change in spending. That would be 1 mark for your definition, but you also need to provide a little bit more supporting explanation. So your next point would be a change in any component of aggregate expenditure will result in a multiplied change in output and income. So it's always important to keep that equation in mind. When we're talking about the multiplier, we're really talking about changes in the level of investment and changes in the level of government spending. They will have a multiplied effect on the level of output and income. Now, we know that investment is a key barometer of economic activity. Investment is really important. A couple of reasons why it's really important is, first of all, this concept, one man's spending is another person's income. So what that means is when a firm does invest in new machinery or new equipment or a new building, this allows them to produce more output. This allows them to employ more people. Those people receive an income. They will spend money. That will generate income for other people in the economy.
Easy.
Okay. So the second concept is you need to spend money to make money. So all successful businesses have expanded over time as a result of investment. Businesses will weigh up the risk of investment and the potential return, and they know that in order to expand their business and increase their profit and grow their business, they need to invest. Okay, so what I'll do next is show and explain the multiplier using a diagram. It's really important that you're able to do this, and the best diagram to use is a Keynesian diagram. What I've done already is got a title, I've labelled each of the axes. Make sure that you label them correctly, don't get confused with the aggregate demand, aggregate supply model. So we've got real GDP at the bottom, which is output and or income and aggregate expenditure. And I've also just put in a 45-degree line there. That 45-degree line represents macroeconomic equilibrium, which is any point at which output is equal to income is equal to aggregate expenditure. So what we'll do first of all is we will put in the original level of investment in the economy. We'll just call that I1. And the original level of aggregate expenditure in the economy, we'll call that AE1. We can add some figures here. Let's say that the original level of investment was 10. The original level of aggregate expenditure was 100. And this point here, where the 45-degree line crosses the aggregate expenditure line, is an important point on our diagram as well. That represents macroeconomic equilibrium. So we'll just go across from there. And we'll say that the original level was... So let's say it's say it's 150.
Yeah, let's just keep rolling, we'll edit it.
Okay, so macroeconomic equilibrium is achieved where the 45-degree line crosses the aggregate expenditure line, and that occurs at 150. Let's now assume that investment was to rise by 10 billion to 20 billion. So this now represents I2. We'll put 20 here, we'll put an arrow to indicate that investment has increased from 10 to 20. Now we know that investment is a component of aggregate expenditure. So if investment was to rise by 10, from 10 to 20, then the level of aggregate expenditure will also rise by 10. And that will now become 110. So that is now AE2. Just again use an arrow to annotate our diagram. And we now have a new macroeconomic equilibrium. Okay, so what you will need to do now is make reference to your diagram. So in your reference to the diagram, you should refer to the original level of investment, the original level of aggregate expenditure, and the original level of macroeconomic equilibrium. You're then going to refer to and explain the impact of a change in investment. So you would say that investment rises from 10 to 20, or I1 to I2. Aggregate expenditure rises from 100 to 110. Original macroeconomic equilibrium was 150, it's now 175. What can we learn from this? We can learn that a small change in investment of 10, from 10 to 20, results in a bigger change in the level of output and income in the economy. Okay, so small change of 10 results in a 25 increase in output and income. Now it's important that we also show how this was calculated. So we're making a few assumptions here. We're assuming that the marginal propensity to save in the economy was 0.4. We are assuming that the original investment was 10 and the new investment is now 20. So therefore there's a rise in investment of 10. So in order to work out the multiplier, 1 divided by MPS, so 1 divided by 0.4 equals 2.5 times the change in investment, which is 10. So 2.5 times 10 equals 25. 150, and the new macroeconomic equilibrium is 175. The next thing we need to do, and this is probably the most important, is to be able to use an example to explain our understanding or reinforce our understanding of the multiplier. So a simple example to use could be, say, a mining company like BHP investing in a new coal or a new iron ore mine. So the original macroeconomic equilibrium was 150, and the new macroeconomic equilibrium is 175. The next thing we need to do, and this is probably the most important, is to be able to use an example to explain our understanding or reinforce our understanding of the multiplier. So a simple example to use could be, say, a mining company like BHP investing in a new coal or a new iron ore mine. So in order to, so on the board we've just got a list of of jobs in the mining sector. So BHP decides to invest in a new mine. That creates jobs for a number of different workers, including project managers, drivers, engineers, etc. Now, all of these people employed in these particular jobs in that business will now receive an income. They will go back home, because a lot of these mining workers are fly-in, fly-out workers. So they work in remote parts of WA, they come back home and they earn lots of money. So they come home and they buy cars, they buy houses, they go and buy clothes from Myer, they buy TVs from Harvey Norman. That creates jobs for people in other parts of the economy, not directly involved in mining, but who are benefiting from BHP's decision to invest in a new mine. Because when a labourer receives an income, goes back home and buys a new car, that creates jobs for people in the automotive sector. They receive an income. They go out to the cinema. They go out to a local cafe. They go and buy some new clothes. They go to their local fruit and veg market, which creates more income in more sectors of the economy.